As we are, let's start with the information about what's happening in the world. Thanks to the whole community that's with us. Hey, it's the weekend. But Movidon started with all kinds of news, so let's go to the international news. Let's start with this image that catches our attention. This is in China, where, according to reports, a fireball was visible. This happened over in western China. They say it was in Xinjiang, photographed by Zhang Yubin, according to reports. Another image that stands out today is this moment when Russia reportedly launched a series of military satellites. Let's go into the details of what is known about this event. Apparently, it was a successful launch by Russia. In that sense, let's look at the details of what has been discussed. The launch involves the Soyuz rocket, a rocket already very well known by the Russians themselves, which they always mention for the launch of this type of mission. According to reports, the Space Forces have deployed several satellites classified by the Ministry of Defense, which are believed to be, due to their classification, spy satellites. They have not wanted to give any details. The launch was carried out using the Soyuz rocket, and the mission was completed, according to reports, without technical problems or delays, according to the details. Let's listen to the moment. Thank you. These kinds of launches are always impressive. The Soyuz rocket is now in operation. Obviously, it's always an interesting topic, especially the fact that these are supposedly spy satellites. Also, another thing that stands out is this moment. Take a look. He is the Crown Prince of Morocco. Someone bends down. Watch closely. He kisses his hand, as is customary, for example, with his father, right? He is Moayin Ali Hassan, 22 years old, Crown Prince of Morocco. That's why he wants to kiss his hand, as is customary. Now watch what he does. Let's play it. He pulls his hand away, and later on, during the greetings, several people want to kiss his hand, and he pulls his hand away, according to reports. Well, the Crown Prince also wants to get rid of some very old-fashioned customs, not the protocols they have in that country, not in Morocco. Some people greet him normally, but others try to kiss his hand, which he rejects by pulling it away. Is there anyone who, because of that, even ends up slapping themselves, like giving themselves a self-slap? But well, if they can see that he doesn't like having his hand kissed, then why do they do it? Well, the thing is, it's just one of those curious things. Let's go to the news about what's happening in the world. Look, right from the start, the United States missile destroyer ship, this ship that's on the screen, a destroyer. It wouldn't be very close to Cuba yet. According to reports, it would be about 40-something kilometers away. Yes, very close to the coast, according to what's being reported from Cuba. There's Havana on the left side in the lower left corner, and this is the position of this ship, this missile launcher. Well, it would be at a very close distance, honestly. I mean, at that point, exclusive economic zone or not, it's right next to Havana. It's definitely something that draws attention right now. What's going on? Is this normal for this ship type? Well, it will be interesting to see the comments about this, but for now, that's the topic. So far, there hasn't been any visible reaction from Cuba in that regard. Also, on another topic, Donald Trump himself is already at Mar-a-Lago. He's arriving there now. By the way, he's going to meet with the Honduran president, Tito Asfira, there. They'll be having a conversation there in Florida, in Miami, right? That's also a topic that draws attention today. More striking images, and well, there have also been images circulating of floods that have been happening in Colombia. Greetings to the community watching us over there. How's it going? How are the rains in that area? Apparently it's a rise in the river, at least according to what people are saying. We'll see if there are more details later, but in the meantime, let's see what's happening in NATO. There's an emergency in this case. due to what's been happening between Russia and NATO, especially towards Poland, according to reports of an air emergency in Poland. The airports in Dublin and Rzeszów, located in southeastern Poland, were temporarily closed following an air military response operation. Due to movements the Russians are making right on the border between Poland and Ukraine, they're very close, they're nervous. NATO is nervous because of these movements. And so, because of this, here we see the area. So, Ukraine, this is the border with Ukraine and Poland, and this is where these movements are happening. The mentioned airports, Dublin and Rzeszów, are located in the southeast, heading, let's say, toward this same area of Poland. There was no, according to what they confirm, there was no violation of Polish airspace, but preventive measures did have to be put in place to protect the areas near the border with Ukraine. Especially due to the risk of Russian missiles crossing the border, according to the Polish army, the air operation was of a preventive and defensive nature, activating radar and anti-aircraft defense systems as a deterrent measure. The United States Federal Aviation Administration also issued a notice stating that both airports in Poland were inaccessible due to military activity related to national security. Meanwhile, Russia launched a massive air attack on energy infrastructure, including power plants, which are key, not in the area where Russia usually attacks, which is this eastern zone, but now they were attacking the west, power plants located in this area, and that's why NATO and Poland got nervous. It's the second time in a few weeks that both airports in Poland have had to suspend operations because of Russia. Flyradar itself reported that several NATO planes were active in the area and that the airports simply had to close. That's why there was an impact. Meanwhile, the CASA planes are flying around there, monitoring the area. Another issue that also draws attention is the threat that Iran is making towards the United States this time. Let's get to that detail first before anything else. I want to send a big greeting to everyone in the community watching this video. Amanda Candela, how have you been, Eliseo Patrifidel? Thanks to everyone in the community watching, and greetings to Blanca, Francisco Arce, and Luis Herrera. Let's get into the details of what's happening in Iran. What are the latest updates? What moves is the United States making toward the Middle East? Let's go with that. In the last 24 hours, there have been unusual movements. According to reports, in the last 24 hours, there has been significant movement of C-17 and C-5 aircraft toward United States bases in the Middle East. The list is huge, as if a massive movement were about to take place within the Middle East. Given the movements and what can be seen beyond what is being discussed, another warning is being issued. I would say it's more of a direct threat. I'm sure they'll report it. Iran comes out again to make its comments that this time are directed straight at the United States. Iran threatens to strike United States bases. Yeah, well, no, this wasn't necessary, we repeating it, but it does raise tensions, especially considering they're supposed to have talks next week. It's striking that if they're going to talk, they're already threatening each other again. In which, in theory, well, there's no direct military movement at this moment. Of course there is around, and everyone knows, well, where is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs pointing? The one that's on the screen here. Abbas Saragashi stated that if the United States attacks Iran, the response will be against United States military bases in the region and not against the host countries. In other words, they would say they attack the bases, but not the country. Supposedly not. The warnings came just a day after Iran and the United States agreed to continue nuclear talks. The President of the United States urges ending uranium enrichment, halting the ballistic missile program, and stopping support for regional armed groups, essentially the proxy wars. Yemen, Hamas, Hezbollah, the pro-Iranian Shia groups in Syria, and those in Iraq, and well, who knows in how many other places. Saragashi was direct. Iran won't negotiate on the nuclear issue, so it's off the table from the beginning. Any expansion of the dialogue to missiles or regional policy could be under discussion. But they say they are not going to change anything about the nuclear issue or the defense issue, so as I understand it, they won't talk about missiles either, but they won't make any changes. We can't attack the United States directly, but we can target their regional bases, says Saragashi. They will respond with limited but direct retaliation. Iran insists that putting its missile program on the table would leave them vulnerable to any Israeli attack, which implies their refusal. So that point about the missiles, well, no, it's not going to change. They say the risk is not just military but also energy related. Because of the issue of the Strait of Hormuz, the volatility of oil and gas worldwide, the pressure on regional assets, and the greater uncertainty regarding strategic routes. According to the Iranians themselves, the price remains relatively under control. There doesn't seem to be a shift in that sense, or it's not like the price is rising or falling drastically. Neither one nor the other. It's relatively, let's say, within the price range that's been around for some time. It doesn't go over 70, then it goes down again. That's how it is, right? Even though it tends to go down more than anything. Let's discuss other important topics. Plants. Well, what they're reporting right now is that the Italian government is reporting sabotage against the railway network. This is occurring at the start of the Winter Olympic Games. Apart from the protests against the Olympic Games in Italy, now these alleged acts of sabotage that have been taking place within that country are being added to the situation. Italy is reporting coordinated attacks on its railway network right after the inauguration of Milan-Cortina 2026. According to the report, there were explosives, and well, this has obviously caused maximum tension, he says. These are extremely serious attacks against the railway network. In the northern part of Italy, there were torn cables, explosives, and fires. Cables that fail have also been detected, an explosive device between Bologna and Padua, and a fire in an electrical cabin that was set intentionally. According to the Pasadena station, trains have been delayed by up to 150 minutes. Thousands of passengers have been affected by delays on regional trains, and also a high-speed train. These are routes between Turin and Milan, and Venice and Brescia. Sabotaging the Olympic Games, authorities say, is considered an act by anarchist groups aiming to destabilize the opening of the 2026 Olympic Games. Well, that's at least what the Italian government reports, the government of Giorgia Meloni. Another issue that also draws attention is that there are reports of evictions and the destruction of some houses and buildings. This is happening in Nicaragua with the idea of giving those lands to China, to a Chinese project. The regime in Nicaragua is evicting families from a neighborhood in Managua to push forward a project they have with the Chinese. Obviously, there have been reactions to this. Obviously, some people are not very happy, and it's striking how easily the Chinese government does business. In that area, 40 families were evicted without compensation to expand the project called Nuevas Victorias, which is financed by China. The forced eviction. In Managua, at least 40 families from the Bor neighborhood were expelled without compensation or relocation by order of the Nicaraguan regime. This has been happening in recent months, from September until now. The neighbors' complaints state that they were threatened and their homes demolished after being informed that the land belonged to Rosario Murillo, that is, to the wife of the dictator Daniel Ortega. They have a joint government there, right? Really? There have been operations carried out with security guards, heavy machinery, and constant police surveillance, according to witnesses from the area. It's coming to an end. The transition of Haiti's mandate is almost over. Do you remember when the president was only supposed to serve briefly and they planned to replace him regularly? Well, while they're making these changes, there's a total power vacuum in Haiti, where there is a government, but it's a government that has no power, that only operates in very small areas. And right now, another group is being formed, together with the United Nations, of soldiers who will be trying to advance and control the largest parts of Haiti, which are currently controlled by gangs and have been for years. Notice that yesterday, this man here is the general. Well, the second most important general in charge of Russian intelligence, not from the main intelligence directorate. And yesterday he was shot, left in critical condition. Is he now regaining some consciousness? After the surgery, the Russian general, who was shot several times, regained consciousness after successfully undergoing surgery. This is according to Russian doctors. Lieutenant General Vladivostok Vladimir Alexeyev, Deputy Director of Russian Military Intelligence, is said to be the second most important figure in Russian military intelligence. Well, that's a topic we'll see about. If he gives an account of who shot him, it will be interesting to have that information. Meanwhile, another matter that draws attention is what's happening over there. Between the blackout in Russia and the blackout happening in different parts of Ukraine, well, it's pretty intense, isn't it? Amid the massive attacks on Ukraine's power grid, there have been air raid alerts and announcements of widespread power outages. Once again, they say it's under the strategy of attacking the infrastructure. The situation is extremely tough at Ukrenergo, which is the state energy company. He pointed out that due to the damage caused by the bombings, emergency power outages were imposed in most places. And those outages could continue for weeks, they say, according to them. Well, there's also another issue that's drawing attention among these international events. There's an attack being carried out by drones, or rather with drones, by a paramilitary group. In Sudan, at least 24 people, including 8 children, have died, according to local medical groups. Well, this region, which we've also been updating from time to time, this area of Sudan is experiencing a kind of civil war. It's divided into two groups, the group that controls the government and a group that used to be their partner and now also wants a share of power. We have to remember that there is already a South Sudan, that's a separate issue, but within the same city, there is also another division here. In the future, there might be South Sudan, Central Sudan, and North Sudan. No, I don't know really. I mean, we'll see what happens, but a group of doctors is urging the international communities and human rights organizations to take action and help protect civilians, and to hold the Rapid Support Forces leaders directly accountable for what they've been doing. That's what they say. The situation isn't that terrible, so let's move on to other important matters. Another issue that's also drawing attention is what's happening inside New Zealand or around New Zealand. Where was this image reported where it looks like there's a meteorite, but it's extraordinarily fast? When the calculations were done, they said, hey, this meteorite could be interstellar. They started to investigate, and it's already been confirmed that it's not interstellar, but it definitely caught people's attention. The speed at which the meteorite was traveling. They say incredibly fast compared to what usually happens with meteors. I mean, they go super fast, but this one in particular was going much faster. They claim that this hypervelocity meteor from New Zealand is not interstellar, according to the data available now, but its record speed would have been surprising. This was the sky over Wellington in New Zealand. It happened on January 30, 2011. It would have come from our own cosmic neighborhood. According to astrophysicist Aviluev, the bright green meteor was observed over Wellington and New Zealand on January 30 at 10:25 UTC 23 local time, basically 11 p.m. In 25 minutes, it traveled at a speed of 71 kilometers. Pay attention to that, 71 kilometers per second. Just imagine that speed. He says this limit occurs if a meteor hits Earth head-on, moving opposite to the solar orbit. The analysis was carried out by the same astrophysicist who justified this speed in that way, assuring that it was not an interstellar meteor. There was, by the way, a case investigated by the same person on one occasion. And well, this analysis that is being done, they collected the trajectory, where it was coming from, the speed, etc. And well, they realized this, it's not a normal speed. Honestly, it's surprising. Now let's move to other interesting topics. Let's discuss other topics, including world events. Notice that there is also, let's put it here, there are a series of images that are pending, which we will be commenting on, and this is one of them. A map that right now shows how the attacks by Russia are happening, as reported by the operational command of the Polish armed forces. He said the fighter jets, Polish early warning planes, and NATO aircraft have been deployed to Eastern European bases. The defense systems have been active, and this is the map that shows the attacks that have been taking place. If you look, this is Ukraine, no, this is Poland, and here are the NATO countries. So when you see that the attacks are very close to Ukraine, they say that any mistake could directly affect Poland, right? So in this situation, regarding this issue, obviously they've deployed the planes, right? That's also an important part of what's happening. Another thing that also draws attention today is that, well, Bitcoin tried to recover along the green line yesterday, but it's already dropping again, right? So let's see if it gets past this yellow line, which means crossing this line. That would be a major red flag. Regarding the topic of cryptocurrencies, it seems there was no reaction because the announcement that China made yesterday did have an intention. Didn't Bitcoin drop a lot, and when is it still dropping? That's a very negative comment about the prohibition of cryptocurrencies. Well, what was expected was that it would drop even more, which, at least so far, hasn't happened. We'll see if later on we also reach important points. One more quick item before we get to comments. Israel says that Netanyahu will meet with Trump next Wednesday. And this would be a meeting and a call, not just a meeting, not just a call, but a meeting where they will see each other at the White House. By the way, they will see each other in Washington. And the main topic is supposedly going to be Iran, so, well, the issue isn't over. The fact that it's Netanyahu himself going all the way to the United States could mean a possible attack. It's not just anything. Or the opposite too, right? Maybe he sees that the United States is going to attack and Israel says, well, no, right now it's not convenient. I don't know, but decisions could be made starting that Wednesday, unless there are surprises before then, but Wednesday he's going over there. We also have to remember that the United States and Iran are supposed to meet. And they're going to keep talking about the pending issues, even though they've insisted they're not going to change a single thing. No. Anyway, let's move on and check the comments. How have you been? Thanks for joining us. Have a great weekend. Greetings to Blanca, Jose Dominguez, and everyone in the community. Jack Draper, how have you been? Very good to everyone in the community who's just arriving, or to those who are watching us on replay as well, right? Eliseo says, likes are free today. Actually, likes are free and subscriptions are too. Didn't they say so? I pawned the car and grandma's jewelry to get into Bitcoin. That's when you generate wealth, says Jack. How are you, Jack? Greetings, Eliseo. How's it going, Aurelio Garcia? Greetings, Angel Murillo. Hello to Panama. Thanks for your comment. How are things there? Greetings. Very good, Patrick. How are you? How have you been? Greetings. Who else is there? He says, there. What would happen with 3 in Atlas? Well, we keep talking here about what's been going on. Claudio, how are you? And well, once there are updates, supposedly this week there will be news, we'll get new information, right? The last one was, well, the new elements they had shown us, elements that are related to organic things, an interesting topic. If you can, check the video. I'm not sure if you saw it. Dorian, how have you been? Amanda? Alvaro, hello. What's up, Lily? How have you been? Who else, Amanda? Thanks everyone for joining us. Karim, how have you been? All right, we'll be back later. See you later. In another international update report, we'll see you in a little while. See you later.